the screen again. Okay, are you guys here? Can you see the bar graph again?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, the majority of you, 21 of you, realize that the thesis is 40% of your overall FYP mark. Okay, so that is a lot, meaning that the system that you develop, that you spend so long on developing, I think the system is about 20% or something. You have to go back and check with Dr. Lily and, but I know for sure that the thesis is 40% of your mark. I think proposal is 10%, and then there's also question and answer mark as well, and all of this thing. But the thesis comes from, the 40% comes from your thesis, right? So it's not 10%, not 25%, it's actually 40%. So don't throw it out of the window. A lot of your marks is coming from that, okay? And this is why we have this meeting today, to help you score that. You know, don't waste your points or your score, right? So coming back, for your thesis, I'm not going to talk much on this because you already know your FYP outline, right? You have to have an ideation, proposal. So you submitted your proposal last night. And then now you're going to have to do your development, you know, after your question and answer session with your assessor. If they okay it, if they give you green light, then you have to start developing it. Then you have to do testing, evaluation, and then you have to present it, or some students like to call it Viva, okay? So you have to do a presentation in front of your assessors, and then you have to submit your thesis, okay? So, how long do you think you'll take? Right? So this part here that you are right now, development, don't delay, because you might think that, oh, I have until next sem, because our FYP is for 2 semesters, right? I can do development until next sem, and then only week 14 will they call for presentation. So I have a whole 14 weeks of next sem to do everything. That's not exactly true, because right now we are in week 8. You need to do development. And then once you are finished, I would say around week 5 or week 6 of next sem, you should have completed everything on development and focus on evaluation, okay? Because after you do your evaluation with your users, then you can only get the result of your development, whether your development has worked or not. So don't think that you have another 14 weeks next sem to do. No, you don't, because you have to stop somewhere week 5, week 6 to do the evaluation, to analyze your results, and then to come up with a slide. And all the while, you also have to write your thesis, because you don't wait to write your thesis until you have finished your presentation. The gap between your presentation to your thesis submission is only about 2 weeks at most. And even then, you have examination going on still, week 15, and then you start exam week 1. So don't give us excuses that, oh, I have 3 exams this week, I cannot submit thesis, etc. That's why I write Chinchai Bonchai. That's why I have to submit with whatever. That's the state of my thesis. We hear that all the year, every single time students submit thesis. We know that you don't have a lot of time here. So that's why you have to stop doing your development, finish everything by next semester, week 5, week 6 at the most. And then focus on doing evaluation and writing your thesis, okay? There's no point. You can't really write good thesis along here. Even if you choose not to sleep for the 2 weeks, you won't be able to write. And so even if you have an A quality product, or your app is fantastic, is working, fantastic, bombastic, marvelous, everything. But if your thesis is very bad and you score like 30%, you lose 10% of that, or you 20%, of your thesis, you probably won't get an A. Most definitely won't get an A. So don't come up to us and ask, why is it that my friend's app don't look so good as mine, but she gets an A and I get a B+? You have to question yourself, is your thesis up to par? Okay? Right, so the outline of the thesis, you all know: abstract, intro, problem statement, blah, blah, blah. And don't forget at the bottom, result and discussion, conclusion, future work, and appendices. So in fact, if you have any appendix that you want to add in your thesis, you normally always have, then you put in that as well. Right. So you have to question yourself, how long do you need to write all of these? Okay. So I'm going to go into definition and differentiation because I think some of us are still confused between several things that seem to, relate to one another. Like, for example, problem statement and objectives. Already I have seen proposals written which are interchanging between problem statements and objective. Okay, so this is an actual example I'm giving from my past student. I don't want to be mean and use current students example because it will be among yourselves. So this is your senior's work, right? So my past student, she was working on producing a Find Me app in UPM, which is like Find Nearest Class and Find Nearest Bus Stop. Okay, so she was using Google Map and also text function to find the bilik kuliah, the lecture rooms and lecture halls and all that, right? Okay, if you see this funny looking Google Map, it's because when she started developing, we were in UPM, but then she had lockdown, she went back to Sarawak. So when she tested her app, it had to, calculate from Cebu to UPM. So that's why it looks funny. Anyway, so if you're given this here, to develop, is this a problem statement or an objective? Would you say? Can somebody just shout the answer?
Objective.
Okay, great. So one key thing to remember, if your problem statement has to do something, to develop or to fix or to solve, or then it means that it's not a problem statement. That's already wrong. Okay. So when you intend to do something, that is your objective or your aim for that particular project. Okay. So mainly because you guys are to develop, developing. You guys are to develop. Now, so then another example here is traditional map cannot fulfill the needs of students. UPM is a big campus, confusion to find classroom. So these are the kind of things that are what we call problem statement, okay? Because you are stating the problem. What are the problems that you need to fix? So your objective will talk about how are you going to fix that problem that you just stated. Do you understand? So this is the thought or the thinking process that you need to have before you start writing your proposal or your thesis. You need to be clear. So basically, a research problem or problem statement is anything that you would like to address in your research. What are the problems? You identify the area of concern, and the objectives are the statements that you write down on what do you need to do in order to solve the problem that you've stated. Okay, I hope you guys are clear. If in any part of the talk that you feel like you need to ask something, just interrupt me, it's fine. Okay, so whenever you write an objective, it needs to be SMART. SMART meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So I think you guys have come across SMART many, many times already. So let's see, specific, going through this student's objective, to develop a mobile app, enable students, staff, and visitor search locations of classroom within UPM, use of text query and exact matching technique. So it's specifically stating how it's going to fix this problem, okay, for students, for who, for visitor, for staff, to do what, to search location, using what technique, using exact matching and text query, okay? So that's one of the example of it being specific. It needs to be measurable in the sense that a lot of students, they write, oh, to promote or to increase tourism. This is from my class, or to, but if you write things like to increase the number of tourists in a certain area because your app is about, interesting places in Malaysia, you can't really measure whether you have increased the number of tourists visiting that particular area. So you have to revisit your objective and rewrite it again, make it measurable. So in this case here, she wrote to develop. So it's fine because we can see that the development has done, okay, has been completed. So these are just some of the examples. So you have to make sure that it's achievable. Yes, it's related to measurable as well. And it's relevant. So yes, if you're trying to fix the issue with confusion and being lost on campus, then your objective will need to be relevant to that problem statement. And it needs to be time-based. Okay, time-based meaning that you need to be able to measure within a certain amount of time. So it's not like for infinity, okay? So basically, even if you don't state this explicitly, we know that we have a time base of two semesters to do it. Right. So that's on part of problem statement on an objective. Do you guys are you guys clear on that? Are you guys clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we shall move on. So far, do you guys have problems differentiating the two or not?
No problem.
No problem. Okay. So sorry if you guys know this already, but I keep seeing the same mistake again and again. And if you think that I'm talking about you, it's not really, me attacking you. It's like students of the past have also made the same mistake. So these are some of the differentiation that I have to show today because it's the same mistake that students make. Okay, so methodology is not differentiating now. But Mr. Dr. Bang would like me to highlight this because it's true that students in the methodology section, they keep on writing SDLC, waterfall, and then they give us this diagram here, this diagram here, and then they talk about requirement design, development, testing. What are they? Okay, so actually we don't really need you to explain it to us. We've taught you this. We have actually taught you this. I taught you this in multimedia application development when you were in year 1. So we don't really need to know what waterfall model is anymore. Actually, you can choose any other model as well, but typically you guys use waterfall model. It's not wrong that you use waterfall model, but what is wrong is that you didn't explain what did you do in each of these steps, okay? So you need to explain during the requirement, what did you do? How did you get requirement? How did you get the requirements from your users? And in the design, what did you do? Where's your prototype? Where's your sketches? Where's your storyboard? In the development, how did you develop? What did you use? How many steps did you do? Testing, how did you test it? How did you deploy it? All of these things, you have to mention it. It's not enough that you just give this and then that's it. Methodology section should have been like one of the longest chapter in the thesis, but typically we get students send in methodology section, which is like 2 or 3 pages, simply because they just write about the waterfall model. And sometimes we can tell that you copy pasted from your seniors. Okay, so your seniors wrote it wrongly and you copied and present it to us wrongly again. So stop doing that. Think about your methodology, not the general methodology. Okay? Right, evaluation. Like I said before, you need to finish your development by about week 5, week 6, because you need to carry out your evaluation. Evaluation is you need to describe how you let your users use your system, who did it, how many did it, present to us the demographics breakdown, like male, female, age, background, location, blah, 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 because all this may be important, right? And where did you do it? It's fine. In the past, students have done it at their own college. They ask their roommates, friends, etc. And what task did they do? If you ask them to use your app, you need to list an instruction of what they needed to do. And after that, what are you measuring? What data collection method are you using? Okay, so if you're using interview or if you're drafting questionnaires, you need to check with your supervisors first. Are these questionnaires okay? Because you don't want to be asking questions that don't really mean anything much to what you're trying to evaluate. Okay, so you have to know what to ask. This relates quite a lot to the HCI materials that we've taught you, me and Dr. Azrul. If you guys remember, what data collection method you're going to use, focus group, interview, questionnaire, survey, and then drafting the questionnaires correctly, approaching your respondents, etc., etc. So you have to recall all of that, right? And then also state how long did you do it for. This is just an example of the students in last semester, your senior, the 4th year student. Because of the pandemic, we had to do our user study online. So there are ways to do it online as well, but you have to really think outside of the box because you can't approach people face to face anymore. Okay, right. So talking about college mates, and you can do it with your friends, family, doesn't matter, but do it in a more appropriate and formal setting lah. So students in the past have produced pictures that their roommate tested their apps while on the bed, like apa yang meniarap, what do you call? They're lying on the bed with the belly down and then using. So that's really not formal at all. So please, even if they are in the comfort of their own room, try to make the setting as formal as possible because it is your FYP. Okay. Right. So I'd like to go back to this slide here and this slide here lah basically. So if you notice in your FYP, all of the things that we taught you throughout the 3 years, because you do your FYP in the 4th year, right? And throughout the 3 years, all come back together and all the puzzles will have to fit. If you remember, you learned about this in MAD SKM 3300, my class. And then also you revisit it again when you do Introduction to SE. A little bit when you do HCI. And then this one here, evaluation, you covered this in HCI, SSE 3202. Okay, so you have to use all of this knowledge again from secondary school, like I said, to all of these year 1 courses, year 2 courses. You need to use all of that. Don't just stash your notes at the back and never revisit them again. No, they need to resurface during FYP and during thesis writing, because even we lecturers would be asking ourselves, we've taught them this already in the past, but why is it when they come to write FYP thesis, it doesn't show? You need to, okay? So anyway, talking about evaluation, then you need to analyze, okay, result and discussion. These are two different things, but students confuse them all the time. So result is basically what you get. So this is what we call perhaps a result. And a discussion is you discuss why is your result like that? Why did it happen that way? So for example, if you can see here, it's a bar chart of female versus male performance. Sorry, I didn't have the title up here, but it's the performance in an exam. And who scored more or higher. This is just a fake data, okay? So that it's not from anywhere. So for example, if we look at this data here, the results show that male and female perform equally in natural sciences courses, right? But the majority of other courses, the male scored higher, particularly the gap is highest in mathematics, for example. But this is from this here. The one subject or courses which female outperform the male is in linguistics. That is all result. I haven't even started discussion yet. Full stop, result. So what is the discussion part? The discussion is you trying to explain why is it that the male scored higher in the majority of the courses, but suddenly in linguistics, female performs more. Then you might want to go and refer to other work, for example, in cognitive sciences or in anatomy. Why? You explain it in the brain, perhaps, because linguistics is very verbal. It's on the right side of the brain, and female occupy the right side of the brain more than the left side. The male, they tend to occupy the left side of the brain, which explains engineering, programming, and mathematics, which requires more logic, blah, blah, blah. So that is discussion. You need to discuss your result. So it's not good saying result and discussion, but showing this graph and saying males perform better than female in most cases, except linguistics. Okay? So do you guys understand?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So the process takes a long time to do, so you have to allow yourself to have this time to think through and to write it through. That's why you can't wait until you finish presentation and then you choose to write your thesis. I don't know how much of this will, how much of this will you guys will practice of what I said, but we see this happening again and again with students, right? So don't be those like your seniors. Okay?
Doctor, sorry.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
What if in the discussion can we propose or suggest an idea on how the result happen like that?
Yes, you can propose. You can suggest why it happens like that, but you need to back it up with a supporting document. So, for example, that's why I said if this in this situation here, you might want to say because of the left side and left and right side of the brain and female occupied the right side. Then you need to find in cognitive sciences what paper said that female occupy the right side of the brain more than the male. Okay? So they support why you think that way. It's not just your gut feeling or your instinct, but you also have other people have mentioned this before, and this is why it's happening that way in my result. Okay, thank you. Let me see who's trying to enter. Okay. Citation and references. This is also another confusion that students have, but it's not like a major confusion because it's used interchangeably anyway. So citation and references, they go together. But if you are confused, citation is the part within the text of your written work where you acknowledge the sources. So for example, if you write in your thesis and suddenly you want to cite somebody, you want to quote or use whatever statement they have. So you write here, according to Niku Himat, 2013. So this is a citation. Okay? So this happens in your thesis, but references is the book bibliographic information at the end. So Niku Himat here, it's in, at the end when you start doing your references, then number 1 to number 4, Niku Himat is there. So this is a reference. Okay, so this one is a citation because you are citing it in your text, and this one is the references where people can refer to the work. So this is just general knowledge lah for you to know so that whenever you talk, you're using the right terms. Okay. I want to take you to scholar.google.com if you haven't already used yet. Just go. Any paper is fine. So if you use Google Scholar, it's like Google as well, but this is where you would search for papers. You can either use the author's name or a title, and it will search for you relevant papers. For example, I will check. Okay, so these are her paper, Elisa Meckler's paper, so I can, open up if I find one that I like and, read it up, etc. And we are using the APA. Oh, sorry, I wasn't sharing. Was I sharing? We are using the APA method for referencing or citing. So if you don't know what that is, you can read up because there's like several methods, APA, Chicago, MLA, but we're using APA and it's the 7th edition now. But if you really don't know how to, you can always go whenever in school, Google Scholar, and you done a search and they return materials. And for example, you say you like this one here, this material here, you have a read through and it's relevant to the materials that you want to use in your thesis. Then you go back here and you can go and choose this one here, the one with like this comma here. Okay, and you can see there are MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver. These are the different types of referencing style. So you always choose an APA copy and then put it back in your as your references. So that's the simplest way to do it. Although sometimes it's not detailed enough, but I think for FYP level it's fine. So let me show you that again. So if you like a paper, you go and you read through. Yes, it's relevant. You want to take it, then you go to this apostrophe comma here. Okay, quote, double quote there. You click there and you choose APA. So that's how you do it. Right. Continuing on the appendices, here is where you put in things like the questionnaire that you've used. The questionnaire, if you use Google Form, you can put in the Google Form in there. If you use actual papers, then you can put the Word file in there. Here, my students put in a user manual. How do you use it? Your interfaces, explaining the function. Also, is in appendices. Transcription. Transcription is if you do an interview, then you have to transcribe or write back what your interviewers, what you guys talked about or in the interview. So you have to write pages and pages of transcription. Okay. So far, do you guys are you guys clear on this? Clear? Huh? Hello, are you guys still here? Gone already?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Kejap. I'm just sharing. Let me share. Very quickly lah. What my FYP student did in the past. So bear in mind that this is the amount of work that you will have to do next semester. Okay, so, oh, sorry, you guys are up to proposal, right? So Gantt chart and everything done. What is this? Chapter 3, methodology. So you need to explain all the things that you do. Flow chart, storyboard, all of that you've learned in the past, you need to showcase this back again in your thesis, okay? Use case diagram. If you have database, ERD, diagram, entity relationship diagram. And then your UI, interface. So this is just explaining the architecture. Samples of coding. And then evaluation after that. Using Zoom, evaluate. And then analysis, presenting the results. And then explaining how you did it, what you did. And then you have to have a discussion before you have a conclusion, future work, limitation, achievement, conclusion, and then your references, okay? Sorry, I think you might have seen from your supervisor. If you haven't asked, you can, I don't know whether your supervisor will give it or not, but you can also try asking your supervisor for a copy, or you can look up on the internet as well from other university. I don't think in UPM we share our FYP students' work, but if you can find from abroad or whatever, you can have a look, okay? So that's that for thesis, I would say. We still have a few bits more to cover. I hope that you are still okay. Okay, girl? Okay for me to go on?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, doctor.
Thank you. So you might think that it's overwhelming, right? This thesis thing, and you don't have a clue of why you need to do it or whatever. I'd like to, again, because this topic is about revisiting this talk, I'd like to revisit your old self doing a science experiment in secondary school where you have to write a science report. Do you guys remember? This is an example here. Can you see? Matahari. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's in Malay. But because in secondary school, we did, a lot of us did in Malay. But basically, you have an experiment. So this is your topic that you want to do. Your title. And then this is your, in the thesis, this is your introduction. So you introduce the very basic of everything, of why you're doing this experiment, why you're doing this project, so in FYP. And then in the past, you also have an objective. So now you also have an objective to do what, to show what, to develop, to blah, blah, blah. So that's your objective. And also you have to highlight in the past, radas, bahan dan alat. So what did you use? Again, if the FYP thesis that I showed you just now, she also mentioned she used this camera, she used this phone, she used whatever laptop, she used whatever software. So basically, it's the same concept. So you have to tune that it's not something scary. You've done it in the past, in the science lab. It's just, upping it one level, and it's a university project, and it's no longer like science in the lab, natural sciences anymore, but it's computer sciences, still computing, it's still sciences, right? But computer science, right? Okay, so things that you need to use, and then the procedure. So procedure is basically your methodology. So go back and think, why do you write about SDLC when you explain nothing of what you did? Okay, so include SDLC, explain what you did in relation to that SDLC steps that you have. Okay, so in here you write, you do this, you do that, blah, 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 blah. And then you conduct your experiment, and then you have your data. So in the methodology, sometimes you will put in pictures as well, how you did it and everything. And you have your data analysis. Same, FYP, thesis, you have to have that result that I showed you. You analyze the result. And then the inference is basically the discussion, but you have to do it longer than this example here. So this example is, I think, in Form 1, 15 years old. So revisit your 13-year-old self. What was that, like 10 years ago? Are you guys 23 now? 22. How old are you?
22.
So visit your 13-year-old self 9 years ago, 10 years ago. You've been doing this for a long time, like up until you are in Form 5, right? So everything, is a continuation of what you learned in the past. So it's not like we can put it aside and forget about it. So don't do it like that. I know you can do it. So I have faith that you will be able to produce really good FYP if you know that structure is the same. I hope that this kind of sheds away all the fear that you have so far. If you have any fear, I don't know. I'm assuming that you have fear because students have fear to start writing. Does this help? Does this kind of like change your attitude a bit? Change how you see FYP thesis?
A little.
Pardon?
Yes, a little.
A little bit. Okay, thank you. So this is also another thing that Dr. Ben would like me to address. Don't worry, I'm not going to teach anything technical. We're not going to do anything. But I'd like to stress that when you do thesis or any other academic writing, you have to be very sure of the format, meaning that you have to find out the format that the organizers, or in this case, Dr. Lily wants, right? So you have to be careful about the font size, the font to use, font type, spacing, margins, etc. Again, this is the material that you've already learned in multimedia technology and also a bit in MAD, multimedia application development. So be very careful, know what they mean, know how to navigate around Word, okay, if you choose to use Words, okay, Microsoft Word. There's no point coming up to the lecture saying, I don't know how to do justify, I don't know how to set margin. There's a lot of tutorial on YouTube. Again, remember, the lecturers, we cannot teach you everything, we cannot spoon feed you. Please look up on the internet. So again, you need to have ample time if you are not very fluent in Word, because you need to learn. So you have to spare some time to learn some of the materials in order for you to write the thesis, okay? But typically, they will ask you to write in Times New Roman, 12 point. You need to have it double spaced, 1 inch margin on the bottom, side, top, left align to the left align text, okay, to the left, and you have to have a half an inch indent every new paragraph. Okay, so this is a general guideline, but follow what Dr. Lily has give to you, okay? Also, when you talk about formatting, you have to be very careful about images, which is like if you use text or if you use images, make sure that they are in high resolution and you are able to read them. So the general guideline is that the font size for anything in your figure needs to be the same size as your text, okay? Otherwise, it will be too small for your readers to read, right? So that's just a general guideline. And also, I need to highlight that this because we keep getting mistakes. I know you guys have started using figure something 1, figure 2, figure 3 at the bottom, make sure that they tally in your text as well. So if you change here, you have to change here. And also, a lot of students, they forget to include figure something in the text. They just suddenly write something and then figure 4.14. So it's left to the assessor or lecturer to figure out what is this figure talking about or where is it being addressed in the text. So don't forget to refer it, to address it in your text before you show your figure. Okay? Okay. So a lot of students, they forget, remember when I said they tend to write, your seniors lah, not you, your seniors, they tend to leave writing the thesis until the very end. Once they finish presentation and then they assume, oh, I have about 2 weeks to write. I can do it. I won't sleep. I will, live off coffee, but I'll finish it. But they tend to forget it's not just about writing. It's the formatting, which is like the killer part as well, because sometimes you can't get everything quite right. And then you also have to remember that you, in addition to your thesis, submission does not just mean submitting the PDF or document file. These are the things that you have to submit as well, depending on your lecturers. But this is definitely something that I personally request. So you will have to prepare your thesis. And thesis, please don't think that you write it within those 2 weeks or whatever, and you submit to lecturer and that's fine, they will accept it. No. Typically, I will return thesis 2 or 3 times to my student for correction. First draft, wrong. It's not wrong lah. I would have to mark. It is a painstaking process for me, as much as it is a painstaking process for you. Okay, so let's do everybody a favor and write good thesis so that you don't have to do much of the correction and I don't have to do much of the reviewing and get headaches and sleep at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning just fixing or trying to suggest correction for your thesis. Okay. Anyway, I'm just saying, don't think that, oh, I'll write and then I'm finished, because in the past, your seniors, they tend to think that in 2 weeks I'll be able to write. Let me book my flight home already. So when they submit the thesis, the lecturer say, no, this is not the quality that we want. And then there's no point. The student saying, but I have my flight tonight. I have to fly back home tonight. I cannot. And then the lecturer will normally accept the thesis, but they will slash the mark again, like I said. So it's your loss lah. Okay, so be aware that there might be several cycles of review for your thesis. And then you have to submit your Viva slide, the source code, your APK. If you use hosting, then you need to have all this information about password. Hosting, you need to hand over to the lecturer. Data collection material, your picture, your video, your form. So nowadays you are fine lah, because we do everything online, right? But it's still something that you have to do. So I just want to show to you that the amount of work within that rush period to submit that thesis is crazy. Okay. And then your documentation, simple manual. Suddenly you have to create manual of your apps. You have to report screen of how you would use it. You click here, click there, and how to navigate your app. And then finally, a hard copy. Not a lot of lecturers requested hard copies, but I have in the past. I always value my students' thesis. I have like a stack of them in my room, I think, and I take pride. I personally take pride in all my students. There is not one student that I can say it's a crap piece of writing. No, because I tend to review a lot of their work and they really have to polish it until like it's the quality that they're supposed to produce lah. Okay, but that's just personally me. Some lecturers they will accept it as it is, but then if you get penalized for it, then you lose. It's your loss lah, right? Okay. Next topic is publishing. Not a lot of people, not a lot of students will get into publishing, but I'm just showing that if you do a really high quality thesis, you can actually get it published in the academic journal or proceeding. This is something that I have done. Some of the students who write very well, good thesis, I would rewrite and submit it elsewhere. So this is the most recent one. I presented at the Asian Kai. So you can see the title and this actual students here. And actually, it actually got awarded the best paper award. Okay, so I'm saying that if you produce really good quality paper, really good quality thesis, um, it will actually, you can actually proceed to publish it in an academic proceeding or journal. So have an aim in your mind to do the best that you can, because if it's here, I mean, like if it's published online, you can go to Scholar just now that we shown, and you can actually find your own name. Okay, obviously all lecturers have an account lah, basically a Google Scholar or Scopus account. Yeah, so this is the the lecturers, I wouldn't say social media, but you know how you have likes and you know how many followers, etc. So this is the equivalent of lecturers Instagram. This is how many likes I got, how many citations, yay. What is my H index? 6. Bit sad, sad lah juga. You can search other lecturers too, doesn't matter. But for, I would say for young lecturer like me, this is okay lah, but I should really up my writing. So these are the number of citations that my papers have received. Some up to 60, you know. Other lecturers, I can show other lecturers too. Don't need to brag about me, nothing to show. Let's show one of our professor. So because they're professor, they would have high index, higher likes, higher followers. Huh? This is our Instagram lah for lecturer. In the Google Scholar or also in Scopus. So this is Paramita, not to shame her, but just to show citation dia dah 900 lebih, 900 something. Her H index way higher than mine. So she has a more follower and more of an influencer than me lah in the academic world, so to say. Okay. So it's not all about race. You know, it's not a race to get there. It's not competition on who's more popular or what. But what I'm saying is that if you produce really good quality thesis, then your name can actually be up there because I will put the student's name up as well, right? And it's something to be proud about if you can achieve this. And this is also another FYP student produced under the ACM paper. And then another FYP student, okay? So basically, they are producing apps which are perhaps similar to what you are trying to produce. But if you write things, you document everything carefully, and you know you write everything concisely, you include everything, every detail is there, then you know you can publish it further. And it's not just me who's done it; all the other lecturers do it too. To the students who are really good, they publish it. They publish it. So this is one of the good papers lah because it's been published in Malaysian Journal of Computer Science. Okay, it's a Q3. There's a lot of levels, so this is a level 3, which is quite high lah. So congrats Dr. Masina, and I was the co-supervisor lah. The student was Sim Mei. Okay, I hope that inspires you. That was particularly important if you wanted to proceed into master and PhD. If you have that aim in life to do master and PhD, then you really need to be able to produce good writings. Okay. So next, ethics and plagiarism. In our race to achieve this perfect and good quality writing, you've got to be careful with ethics and not to plagiarize other people's work. Okay, so plagiarism is presenting someone else's work or idea as your own without their consent, and you do not acknowledge the other people. So there are several categories of plagiarism. You can do direct, meaning that you steal word for word whatever other people have written on the internet, in books or whatever, and say and present it as your own. Or you can have mosaic plagiarism, where you cite them, but you still use their word and you don't say that it's a quotation. It can also be a self-plagiarism, meaning that you submit a paper here and then you submit another paper, but you use the words or the text that you use in another place and resubmit at another place. That's self-plagiarism. Or accidental, meaning that you think you've quoted already, but you quoted and you cited the wrong person. Okay, so if the actual person find out, they will be very upset. That's what it's called accidental plagiarism. Reason why you need to cite and everything, and people would like you to cite their work, it's not just because it is their work and you need to acknowledge it. That's one thing. But also, all of these citations, that Google Scholar that I showed you just now, if any one person cites it, then the citation goes up, citation numbers goes up. So if you are not citing anyone and you're just stealing it, they will be at the losing end. So it's not fair to them for working and other people to, benefit off them without acknowledgement, right? It's like, copywriting lah in Instagram. You get very, upset when people copy your post, kan? It's like, hey, I wrote that first, why you copy from me? Something like that lah. So this is what's happening in the academic world. It's the same. Okay. So plagiarism, as lecturers, we know if you are copying words from other places. There are various ways to tell, but experience is the best thing lah, because we can tell by experience already. We read a few words and we read a few lines, then we know that this is not yours. We've taught you from year one. We know your level of writing, your style of writing. So if suddenly things feel out of place, then our radar is immediately picked up. So one way to avoid plagiarism, because maybe you don't intend to do or plagiarize people, but you've taken so much from here and there and everywhere, your thesis is a mixture of a lot of sources, then you might want to use tools such as Turnitin. At the end, when you want to submit your thesis, you need to use Turnitin. Your supervisor will provide you you need to submit you need to access Turnitin. Your supervisor will provide you the codes and everything for you to submit. But basically what Turnitin does is that it will compare your piece of writing, your document, with everything available on the internet. So at the end, it will take a while, sometimes like 15, 30 minutes to really calculate. But these are examples of the result, okay? So typically, I think thesis, I don't remember whether it needs to be under 15% similarity, meaning that there's 15% similarity, the content is similar to other things on the internet, or 30%. I don't remember whether it's 30 or 15. But for papers, journals, etc., they need to be under 15, some needs to be under 30. That's the general rule. So if it says you need to be under 15 and suddenly your thesis come up with 20% like this, then you need to rewrite your thesis. Okay? You need to get until it's below that certain similarity percentage allowed, right? So if it's something like this, then they're fine. The Apple's white paper just now that you saw, that was only 8%. There will be some words or some percentage from the internet because you're taking materials, you're citing other people as well. But that's why it needs to be at the very minimum, like 15% and the 30% like that, okay? So bear in mind, if you try to get away with it, you won't. And then it will be more problem for you at the end when you try to submit and you already pressed for time and your lecturer say, no, your Turnitin is 35%, rewrite. Okay? So we don't want that to happen to you. Okay, so when you're writing, sometimes you have writer's block. Before we solve writer's block, you need to know why. So perhaps it's the wrong timing. Either you're very tired or you try to wake up and work in the morning, but you're not a morning person. So if I force myself to write in the morning, I will have this writer's block as well. So that's why I tend to not write in the morning anymore. I know that I work best at midnight. So maybe it's the timing that's the problem. Secondly, quite commonly it's because of the fear. I have this too. Because I am afraid of making mistakes. I think that it's a really massive piece of writing. Like if it's a very well-renowned journal, I have a fear. I feel like I'm not good enough, and also because I would like to think that I'm a perfectionist. I don't want to do mistakes, so I put off writing out of these two reasons. So I think every one of us needs to put these fear aside and just try to walk, or just try to write. Okay, so writer's block. Some of the suggestions that I got over the internet is, these are things to do: go for a walk, eliminate distractions, exercise, change environment, read a book, listen to music. Listen to music tend to help me sometimes. They might not all work for you. Some work for me. Doing house chores sometimes work as well. I know when I was doing my PhD, I worked as a cleaner as well to get like pocket money. And a lot of my algorithms or ideas, they come from when I was cleaning the toilet, okay, as a cleaner. And then I was like, it's like a eureka moment. So I don't know what works for you. I'm not saying that I get ideas when I clean toilet. I don't anymore. But during those time, I had when I had to work long hours as well, like 4 hours a day, cleaning, do cleaning jobs. So yeah, they come when I'm not in front of the laptop, right? But I also like you to try free writing. Free writing is like you take a piece of paper and you take a pen and you just write whatever that's in your head. Just try writing anyway. I would suggest to not write straight away to your laptop. That for me, I can't write straight onto a laptop. I always have to have papers and pen. I'm a very traditional person. Even when I'm doing these slides, I wrote on papers first. What do I need to write? Because that's how I channel my thoughts. I don't know whether that will work for you or not. But if you ever try to write on a laptop and it's not working, quickly find a paper and pen, and you might realize that you are able to get some ideas out when it's in that setting. Try. And I also ask my students who are answering in the exam as well to try that, because nowadays your exams are all online, right? And sometimes you get stuck and you waste time trying to answer in that Google form. Whereas if it's pen and paper, you can write first. So maybe it is helpful if you write like bullet points and then try to type it fast for exam. So I don't know. I don't want you to lose point, but it's a trial and error because we are in a new norm now, okay? Basically, just do it. Like you have to do it when you have to do it. All right, so we're reaching the end of the talk now. I'm really sorry I took a long time, but the takeaway is that you need to identify the big whys. Why do you want to write, or why do you need to write? Is because if you want to change the world, then write. Okay, Martin Luther King said this. So I know you probably don't want to change the world, or you don't think you can change the world yet. But if you want to change, you want to succeed, you have to start writing. Why? Because to do well in school, you have to write. To do well in university, you have to submit report submission. You have to write in the exam. In the exam, although we accept bullet points, but if a question asks you to elaborate, explain, describe, you have to do it well. Okay, there's no point writing bullet points and then you're not describing anything. So you'll probably get half a mark of what's allocated. Okay, so in order to do well in school, you need to write. In order to extend your career options, when you finish, you graduate, you go on to work, like I mentioned before, minute taking, letter writing, all that you do on a daily basis. And I'd like to also mention, in school and also during interviews or whatever for work, the only thing that represents you is your piece of paper, especially your resume lah. So assessor, examiners, or even interviewers, they are also human. If you write rubbish materials, your spelling, punctuation, and grammar are all over the place. Whatever you write doesn't make sense. At first glance, the interviewer will chuck your application into the bin straight away.